I am Elsa Ray, project manager and the spokesperson of the CCIF, which is the Collectif Against Islamophobia in France. The CCIF is a non-profit organization working on providing legal and moral support to victims of Islamophobia in France. The victims contact us directly to report Islamophobic incidents to us, and we have a legal department with professional jurists who provide on regular, like every day, legal and moral support to victims of Islamophobia. What we try to do is generate awareness among national and local bodies to make sure that they actually understand the issue of Islamophobia, because we know that there is a rise of Islamophobia in France and in Europe, but sometimes we don't really know what is exactly Islamophobia. Is it discrimination? Is it hate crimes? What is the impact on the Muslim community? So it's very important that we actually provide information from the ground and we generate awareness among the institutions. We provide information to the Council of Europe, to the OSCE, to the European Commission. So we really try to do advocacy and lobbying. 2 years ago, we launched a project, a pan-European project, to counter Islamophobia in Europe. It's a project named IMAN, Islamophobia Monitoring and Action Network. It's a project to fill a gap in Europe in terms of monitoring Islamophobia. So based on the work CCIF does, we know that first of all, the first general trend of Islamophobia in France, but also in Europe, is that the first victims are women, which means that Islamophobia is a type of racism, but also a type of sexism. The second trend is that the state is the first perpetrator of Islamophobia, which means that Islamophobia is really a systemic problem and it's a structural problem. The French government, especially since the terrorist attacks in Paris in January, started to reinforce its policies in terms of counter-radicalization. The problem is it's only about repression and not about prevention. And that's the biggest problem we actually have, especially because preventing radicalization is also countering Islamophobia. Because Islamophobia generates a lot of frustration and anger. And when they try to do prevention, they don't work with civil society organizations such as the CCIF or any other organization. And the problem that the prevention they do is very much about stigmatization and prejudice toward Muslims in general. The impact on our work is that we receive more reporting from victims of counter-radicalization measures, such as like stop and search, stop and frisk, abusive police control and stuff like that, but also stigmatization from the media, from the work environment. And I think it's also a consequence of the security measures that the government wanted to take right after the attacks, and the hysterical atmosphere in which all Muslims were considered as suspects. And when a 9-year-old at school refused to say "Je suis Charlie," he was put into custody. Obviously, there is radicalization in some religious field, but we know that there is also a lot of radicalization in extreme right-wing parties or groups, especially among the youngsters. And so the government should take into account any type of radicalization to be more efficient, because obviously, if you counter just one type of radicalization, you will emphasize others. And that's the problem. You should counter, it's like racism. You cannot counter only anti-Semitism and not Islamophobia. And I believe it's the biggest threat, because as soon as there is a rise of intolerance and racism, then there is a rise of radicalization in different areas. And that's a threat for the security of any European citizens. We must have, I believe, different actors involved in this work. First of all, the civil society organizations, the non-profit organizations, because they have a lot of knowledge and expertise on the field, on the ground. Then the second actor must be community leaders, because obviously in Europe there is a lot of different communities. And the third actor must be the state. It must be like a teamwork between civil society organizations, community organizations, and member states, and also receive the support from the European bodies, because they also have a lot of power. They have a lot of, let's say, tools and material to support the work of these different actors. It is obviously very important to have security in the society. That's even primary. But as I see it right now, is really about very repressive, and we don't feel safe, actually. That's the consequence is that we feel the opposite that we should feel. Security is about feeling safe, whatever your origin, whatever your, beliefs and stuff like that, and it's not the case. You cannot fight for freedom and liberty if you actually restrain the civil rights of your population. So it's very important.